write that down. The only job, write it down. It's as important for you to like print down into memory. The only job that you have is to help the person make the best decision for them. The only job you have is to help the person make the best decision for them.
This next guest is phenomenal. He's the only guest talking about sales. I'm sure Sarah will talk a little bit about how she's pitched herself. JLD just talked about pitching yourself with the perfect pitch, and all of you are gonna do it in the Facebook group tonight. But this guy, when I heard him talk about the 3 rules of sales, he has tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of customers. You might not necessarily know him, but the dude is one of the most brilliant guys and a dear friend of mine. He is brilliant when it comes to sales, and if you can understand these 3 rules around sales, revenues for you will begin to go through the roof and explode. So I want you to welcome all platforms everywhere, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, everywhere, backstage. Welcome my buddy, Mr. Taylor Welch. Give it up for Taylor!
Oh, snap. What an intro. Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me. Guys, I am so stoked. Pete is one of my favorite people in the entire world. And I know that the same is true for you. Let's talk about sales for just a minute. I'm going to tell you a quick story just about me and my background and how I got into this game of influence, conversion, persuasion, sales, etc. I started my business in 2015, but my first client ever was in 2014. 2014, I was a wee little lad, didn't know what I was doing, and I got started in copywriting. The problem is I did not know how to take money. I did not know how to talk to people, and I was terrified of sales. So like most people, you think of the word sales and you think of the scammy used car salesman with the slicked back hair, and is like, that's not who I want to be, right? It's not my vibe. And I remember the very first conversation I had with a potential client. His name was Gary, and I'm not making this story up. It's the honest truth. People think I'm making it up because it sounds too good to be true, but his name was Gary. And we got to the end of the call. It was a sales call. And I was explaining to him how I could help him and change his life and do all of the things that I was passionate about doing, right? And we get to the end of the call and he says, sounds great, sign me up. And I said, cool, I'll call you tomorrow. He's like, why are you going to call me tomorrow? I'm ready to go right now. Let's rock and roll. I said, you know what? It's fine. I will call you tomorrow. No big deal. Like, let's just talk tomorrow. And Gary was an intuitive individual, and he could tell that I didn't know what I was doing. And it turns out Gary was a sales trainer. And he said, is this your first time taking money from a client? I was like, you know, those moments in your life where you're like, do I choose honesty here, or do I like ruin this wonderful opportunity? Do I ruin it by being honest? And I chose honesty, and I said, yeah, it is my first time. I don't actually know how to take your money. If you learn anything today, learn this, that you don't necessarily have to be a natural to make a great living and to master this idea of salesmanship. You don't have to be born with it. You don't have to have the personality for it. You don't have to necessarily be outgoing or naturally persuasive, because I didn't start with an inclination towards sales. And as the story exposes quite well, I actually was horrible at sales when I got started. And Gary walked me through, this is so embarrassing, but he walked me through how to take a payment over PayPal for the very first time. This is in 2014. I said, Gary, thank you so much. Would you be able to teach me how to do this for other people? And he said, yes, I will teach you. And we developed a relationship, and I got pretty good at this art and science of persuasive salesmanship and being able to influence people on the phone. So I want to take you into what I have kind of created as a bit of intellectual property. I want to change your life a little bit today, because at the end of the day, you can have the most amazing product ever. You can have the most amazing calling ever. You can have the most amazing gift ever, but if you do not learn how to actually get that gift into people's lives, most oftentimes in an exchange for money, then your gift will not be as impactful as it could have been. And sales is a great gift. Sales is a wonderful instrument to be able to take the great things you can do for other people and actually maximize that impact. So if you're taking notes, hopefully you're taking notes. If you're not, grab something to take notes with because I'm going to go through these quickly and I'm going to end this. I have a giant timer on my screen. I'm going to end it on time. I promised Pete that I would end on time, so that's what I'm going to do. 3 rules of sales. I'm going to take you through them. We're going to talk about them real quick. Rule number 1. This applies to every industry, every type of transaction, every country, every culture. This is a human nature thing. It's not an industry specific thing. Rule number 1 is the only job, write that down. The only job, write it down. It's as important for you to like print down into memory. The only job that you have is to help the person make the best decision for them. The only job you have is to help the person make the best decision for them. Some of you, the reason that you're so freaked out by this idea of sales is because you're actually coming at the call transactionally. Your job, the job you've given yourself is to convert them into a client and to grab money. It's going to stress you out. It's going to make you nervous. It's going to make you feel sleazy. Your only job in this situation is to help the person on the other end of the phone make the best decision for them. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2, what's best for that person will usually be outside of their comfort zone. What's best for them will be outside of their comfort zone. Write it down. And then rule number 3, the person on the other end will fight like hell to stay inside of their comfort zone. And boom, here we go. Here's the dichotomy. Here's the thing that I love about this game is if it were easy, everybody would be doing it. It's not that at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're helping a person gather the necessary details, gather the necessary information, gather the necessary perspectives. Come on, most of the time when we're actually in this game of high persuasive environments where we're trying to really show somebody what their life could be, it's not a necessary issue of resources. It's an issue of perspective. Your job is not to really convince someone to do anything that they don't necessarily want to do. Your job is to figure out what is it that you want, and let's go ahead and go to battle to get that thing. Rule number 1, your job is to help them make the best decision for them. Rule number 2, what's best for them will almost always be outside of their comfort zone. And rule number 3, typically the person on the other end will fight to stay inside of their comfort zone. And here's what it comes down to. You have to grasp this as a leader, as a thinker, as a producer, as a guide, as a shepherd, as a mentor, whatever it is that you're doing, is that you have to, your job is not to cater to the current version of an individual. Your job is not to cater to the current version of the individual. Your job is not to make them happy. Your job is not necessarily to make them comfortable. Your job is to help shift their perspective in a way that's meaningful, in a way that's respectful, but at the end of the day, in a way that serves the future desired version of the individual. So I remember one time I was on a call. This was early on in my career. And we were talking through this person's situation. And we were able to uncover some things that he wanted to be different in his life. And he told me the future that he desired. And he wanted to be a good dad, and he wanted to be able to spend time with his kids. But the reality is the current version of his life did not actually suit the ideal outcome that he was after. And he was in this position where he was in a current version, a current reality, but he wanted to be in a future reality. And we got to the end of the call and I said, okay, that sounds good. I think that we can do this. I know exactly what needs to happen. Like we can take you through this process and we can get you to the other side. And he began to make decisions from a place of fear. This is another thing to be aware of. We could go all day on this, but I've got 6 minutes and hopefully we can figure out how to get get me backstage at a certain point. But you always know that a person's crossing into danger territory when they begin to make decisions from a place of fear rather than a place of vision. That goes for you as well. Like this is applicable to all humans everywhere. You always know that a person's headed into a danger zone when they begin to make decisions from a place of fear rather than a place of vision. And this is why I love sales so much. I'm about to tell you. Sales is one of the only modalities that we possess as humans that can pick someone up and lift them up from a decision-making of fear and put them into a decision-making territory where they're making a decision based on vision. So here's another principle that you can write down. Because we know that people will fight to stay inside of their comfort zone, and because we know that the thing that they often need to do is outside of their comfort zone, we also know this, that there will be a wrestle on every conversation where you have to help someone escape the current identity that they're living and thinking from and get into the future identity from which they need to make decisions. Now, I've been in calls before. We have teams, we have 60 salespeople, and like we have all of these different brands now. And I don't take sales calls anymore, and I don't do much anymore, but sometimes I miss it because there's nothing quite like being on a call with somebody and really going to, like, I will go to the gates of hell with you to help break you out of your current rut and your current state. But keep in mind that when you're in that position at the end of a call and it feels like there's a little bit of, I don't know, like a little bit of a wrestle, it's an indication that you are partnering with the correct version of the human. It's an indication that you're partnering with the future version of the person you're talking to, which is going to bring a little bit of a rub, right, to the current version. Because the reality is, if somebody was already that future version, if they were already making decisions from a place they wanted to get to, if they were already there, they wouldn't be on the call with you and they wouldn't need you. Some of you are like the last line of defense from a person actually getting to their end goal and preventing them from a life of obscurity and a life of underperformance. Like some of us, we have to do a better job of making sure that we don't get weirded out by the sales process, because when you get that way, what it shows is that you're more interested in how you feel than you are in the outcome of the other person that needs you to be on the call with them. Notice it's not a weird thing. Notice that it's not like a sleazy thing, but I'm very aware that sometimes when we get on these calls, we're talking to people and they're like, I don't know. My current version is a little scared of that. The current version of me, the current identity that I'm operating in is a little bit scared of that. And what we do is we tend to retreat from that. We're like, I don't want to mess up. I don't want to challenge this. And I'm here to tell you that, that's actually the most selfish thing that you could do for that human being. People are like, I just don't want to push them into a situation they want to be in. No, that's not true. You're more worried about what they think about you than you are the outcome that they get from exposure to you on the call. Not coming after you, just challenging you a little bit. We got to get past ourselves a little bit. And when you can get past yourself and realize that you have been strategically placed in the world to make a difference, to lift the tide of the people around you, and to partner with the versions of people who desperately need what you can provide, you have an obligation, a moral obligation, to help disconnect them from their current fears and plug them into the future state of who they're supposed to be. So rule number one, let's go through it real quick. Pete, you can come back on when I'm done. Rule number one, your job is to help the person make the best decision for them. That's it. That should relieve the pressure. There's no pressure here anymore. It's to help the person make the best decision. Rule number two is what's best for that person will most often be outside of their comfort zone. And rule number three is the person will fight to stay inside of their comfort zone. And that's totally okay, because you have an obligation not to get weird and mean, but to help people wrestle through that insecurity so that they can make it out to the other side. That's all I got for you today.
Dude, Taylor, I'm sitting here like saying, come on, yes, amen. Like I'm literally sitting here like hoping that my mic's not on. Guys, did you get those 3 rules? Jennifer Hall, did you get those 3 rules? Dwayne, like drop some freaking effing fire in the chat. Because here's the deal. You guys don't hear me say that often. And I want to see Taylor on my screen behind me. Listen, this is a guy who you might not know, but he doesn't have to be known. He was a pastor, like me, a pastor. And his company is on pace This is a big deal. Not many people cross this threshold. Our next guest, very few cross that threshold, but their company is on pace to do $100 million. And if it doesn't happen this year, it'll happen next year because I know what he's doing in the world. Because he is consumed about the outcome of the client and getting them out of their comfort zone. Taylor, I could take that talk on the road all day long, bro. When you talk to me about NFTs, I'm not as smart as you with NFTs. You and JLD need to jam. He's starting NFT on fire, I guess. But dude, that talk is unbelievable. I have to have you. Backstagers, do we want him backstage sometime this week? Look at that, Taylor. Look at that. Like, I have to, so I'm gonna text you when we get off. We're here till Monday, Taylor, so I have to have you backstage because if people can wrap their minds around this, bro, revenues won't be that'll never be an issue.
Right.
Can we do that? Can I figure it out how to get you backstage? I know you have obligations today.
I think we can make it happen. You're pretty persuasive yourself. You know the 3 rules really well.
Well, I want them to get the outcome that you figured out. So, guys, this is one of my favorite people, a friend of mine. I'd go to battle for him any single day. Will y'all give it up for Taylor Welch? Will y'all give it up for Taylor Welch? Yes. Dude, that talk fires me up because it's about the outcome. It's about the result. It's about solving a problem.